Good. That's good.
Matt, you could make them all this short for the rest of the year. I'd appreciate it.
That would be quite a change from our last several years.
Yes.
Do we have any applicants that you've heard from?
I have one application that I got today for next month. The application deadline, I guess, won't be until next week, Thursday. So we may get some additional ones between now and then.
Okay. I'm being nice and waiting till 5 o'clock.
Gotcha.
Are you looking at the right clock now?
I'm looking at my phone's clock.
Okay. You were confused a minute ago.
I know. Now it's 5. Is everybody ready?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I'd like to call the Scott County Board of Adjustments meeting for January 7th, 2021 to order. If you all had a chance to review the December 2020 minutes, I will take a motion to accept those.
Received my packet in the mail, so I've already read through them. I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes.
I have a motion to accept from Darren. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Sonia seconds. All those in favor to approve December's meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting minutes for December 3, 2020 are approved. We do not have any old applications, correct? And then
That is
we'll
correct.
go on to the new applications. S 2020-36 for Luther and Linda Sebastian for adding an additional residence on their property. And is the applicant here, Matt, for?
No,
Sorry.
that application is still postponed. I should have mentioned
Okay.
that off the top, but that application is still postponed. Still awaiting them to get some additional information back to us, or
All
I
right.
guess hoping that they withdraw.
Okay. Then we go to S 2021-01 for Zachary Sloan. Is he here?
He is present, yes.
Okay. Charlie, would you like to swear Mr. Sloan in, please?
Oh, is he going to testify first, or is Matt going to do the presentation first?
Oh, whichever one you want to do.
I can go over the staff report
Okay.
first if that would work
I've
better.
slept since then, Charlie.
This application is for a conditional use permit for a home occupation. Also, I guess in some ways more commonly called just like a home business. The application is proposed at 100 Redbud Lane. It's a 5-acre lot that's zoned A1. It's our agricultural zoning district. I've got a screenshot from the official zoning map. As you can see, this is 100 Redbud Lane here, sort of at the corner of Brooks Lane and Redbud Lane. There's no previous conditional use permits or variances applied for or approved for the project site. The applicant indicated to me by email that they don't anticipate there being any increase in vehicle traffic or impacts on neighboring property owners, sound, odors, things of that nature. The applicant intends to do all the work inside a shop. in case I didn't mention it previously, I believe the application for the home occupation is so the applicant can get a federal firearms license to do some work on firearms. But they anticipate to do all of the work in a shop and in compliance with all state, federal, and local regulations. I am recommending approval of this application with the 5 conditions that are listed in the staff report. The first being just sort of a reminder to comply with all requirements of the zoning ordinance and subdivision and development regulations. The second being a reminder to comply with all federal, state, and local regulations. The third is one that we attach with conditional use permits for home businesses, reminding them that we do have a sign ordinance that governs what signs might be placed on the property, in particular for home businesses, what types of advertising are or are not allowed. And then the fourth being a reminder that if anything changes regarding their permits, if they anticipate at some point in the future that they would like to have clients come to the property or things of that nature, that they need to come back to the Board of Adjustment to seek approval of that before they do it. And the fifth condition would just be that the conditional use permit would become null and void upon sale or transfer of ownership of the property. So if the applicant, sells the property to someone else and they wanted to have a home business on the site, those people would have to apply for their own conditional use permit. It would not just transfer over from Mr. Sloan should it get approved.
Okay.
Matt, were there any questions or concerns from neighbors, any phone calls to the office?
Not that I'm aware of. Now, granted, we were, closed for some time during the holidays, so it's possible that someone may have tried to reach out to me or to the planning staff and was unable to do so. I do see that we have we have the applicant on, as well as one of the neighbors, so they may have some comments when we get to that part.
Okay.
All right. Charlie, would you like to swear in Mr. Sloan, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mr.
Thank you.
Sloan,
Yes, sir.
would you raise your right hand, please? Do you
sir.
swear or affirm the statement you're about to make to be the truth to the best of your information and belief?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Would you like to explain to us your request, Mr. Sloan?
Yes, ma'am. I actually I have my federal firearms license. I'm doing a change of address. We moved from Georgetown and Sutton Place, and I also got a conditional use permit over there as well. So I'm changing address. Before we can do that, or before they can change my address on my firearms license, obviously I have to get a conditional use permit. I do have a building. It's a 24 by 36 metal building. I have a safe in here. All the doors are locked, the roll-up doors and the front door. I have security surveillance inside. Everything is secure. I abide by federal and state laws to conduct business here. Basically, I'm not selling firearms out of here. I'm customizing firearms. There is no odor that emits. There is no traffic. There's no impact on neighbors. That's basically what it boils down to, is just I'm in my own little world inside my building.
All right. Do any of the board members have questions?
I have
So
a
it's
quick
not-
question.
Okay. Go ahead.
Do you want me to go ahead? I just wanted to ask, I saw that you received a permit back in 2020, January. Have you had any problems for the last year at your other residents doing the same work?
Yes, ma'am. I did receive that. And no, ma'am, I've not received any complaints from the start to date. I've not received any complaints from any neighbors. I've got along with my neighbors. Where I'm at now, I see 2 houses, but I would suspect there would be, they wouldn't even know that when anything's going on. And I like to keep it like that. I just want to make sure everything's secured. But no, ma'am, I've not had any issues.
All right,
Mike.
thank you.
You have something you wanted to ask?
I just can't tell. are you living at 100 Redbud Lane, or is that just the location of your shop?
Yes, sir. It's my residence, and then
Okay.
next to my residence is a metal building we just built.
I got you. Okay, I just couldn't see that on the aerial. Maybe it's a newer house or something.
It is new.
Okay, I got you. That's all I was curious about. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
And then Matt, do we have another person present that wanted to speak?
Yeah, let me,
Because Charlie will have to swear them in as well.
Is she on?
but she's still muted.
Okay.
Oh, there she goes. Ms. Hosley,
Yes,
do you raise your right hand, please? And do you swear or affirm the statement you're about to make to be the truth to the best of your information and belief?
I do.
Thank
And
you.
my husband Frank is here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My husband Frank is also here.
And Frank, do you do the same?
I absolutely do. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
Our concern is there might be additional shooting. And we are one of the houses that Mr. Sloan can see from his backyard. And when he shoots for pleasure, it's definitely sounds like it's close to the house. Even though I'm sure he's shooting into the probably valley that's between us. And wasn't sure what his business, how it would impact on the amount of shooting that will be done.
Could you tell us your address, please, also?
140 Brooks Lane.
Excuse me, 140 what lane?
Brooks Lane?
Rux?
Brooks.
Brooke.
Oh,
Brooks
Brooks.
Lane.
Oh, of course. Thank you.
And our back deck looks down on his house.
And how many acres do you have? And how many does Zach have?
We have 12 point something.
Huh?
I have 5.1.
All right. Zach, do you want to answer her question about the shooting? I don't.
Yes, ma'am. I would love to. So it is not a range or anything like that. I'm as truthful as I can be. There will be times that I test guns, but it's more or less 1 to 2 rounds through a gun that I've disassembled and reassembled. But you know, when we first moved in, yeah, we moved from the city, so we were excited that we could go out on our front porch and shoot. But other than that, there won't be a rise in shooting.
Okay.
So do your customers come out? Do they shoot the guns you're working on?
No, sir.
At your
No,
location?
the customers don't even come out here. I would go to town, and that's what I did similar to when I had it in Georgetown, is I would go meet them, retrieve the firearms, sign it into my ledger, transport the firearm to my house, work on it, and then transport it back to them. So there wasn't a rise in traffic as well. So I do have friends that come over and we do shoot. That's personal, it's personal time. I've not done anything with the business, obviously because I'm not licensed to at this point until I get the address changed. But no, there will be no uptick in traffic due to this.
Okay. Do we have any other questions or discussion?
Yes. This is Frank Hosley.
Uh-huh.
My concern, and it's a great concern to me, is that there is no buffer between their backyard or this gentleman's backyard and our backyard. So when they're shooting out there, there's no safe way to shoot for them because they're surrounded by properties or highways. And my biggest concern is accidents happen all the time and they're shooting in the direction of our house, or boy, it sure sounds that way anyway when they're shooting. And this is one of my biggest concerns that he already answered as far as a business concerned. There will be no additional shooting, just him and his friends. Are they aware that they're shooting at my house?
If it's okay with you, I would like to speak as well.
Okay.
So yeah, we do see his house up there. It is, I would say, don't quote me on the measurement, but I would say it's a quarter mile, I would say, and maybe a little under. But he is high up on a hill. They do look over us. There's a big gully in between our residences. The south line there that you can see their house, their red house, and then we're the first one on the left when you turn on Redbud. And there's a big gully that goes down into like a ravine type. There's a pond down there. We are not shooting directly at their house. And again, this is just a day out, but it is not directly at their house. No.
So what caliber gun are you typically shooting or working on?
The ones that I've worked on when I was in Georgetown, it varies. I mean, it was typically 5.56 to 9mm, 380. It just depended on what the customer wanted.
So you do like AR-15 builds for people?
Right. Correct, sir.
Charlie?
We do.
Which has a pretty, the range on that is way further than a quarter mile. And I live out in the county too, and I can understand the Hosley's concern. I've got people around me that shoot, and but I know that most of the time they're shooting toward. I got one neighbor that shoots, and he shoots toward a man-made berm that. Of course, we got a lot of horses around us as well, and I also see you're next to an interstate, so you are restricted to but to shoot safely, I mean, it'd be my concern that you would aim, your setup would be shooting intentionally away from their house. If I'm looking at this map, which would be to the southwest, into something that was something more secure than just trees, because trees,
Yeah.
5.56, they ricochet and everything else. So I understand the concern, but I don't know if there's anything the board can do as far as restricting a 5-acre site and shooting. But that's my 2 cents on it. Is if I had somebody behind me shooting toward me, and I knew they were shooting, 223s or 5.56s toward my house, I would be concerned as well.
And I agree. We are very responsible people. We would never put anybody in any kind of danger.
Oh, sure.
Our backdrops are very safe. I would never ever put them in danger, or if I believe that it would cause them to be in danger, I would never ever do it.
Are your backstops earthen like berms or something that you shoot into?
Yeah, I wish I could show you. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, I don't think there's any possible way that even a ricochet, if that was to happen, could get to their house the way and the direction that we shoot. I mean, I'm not going to debate that I'm not surrounded by houses in interstate, because I 100% am.
Right.
But I've looked at my land, and I've checked out the best way that I can shoot safely, because I've looked at aerial maps of everything, and I don't believe any way that we would shoot any ricochet would ever go off our property.
Okay.
I'd like to speak, please.
Okay,
Again, my concerns is I like going down into my woods on my property, which goes down into that valley that the gentleman's talking about. And now it's gonna be where I can't go down in there because I'm afraid I'm gonna get shot. And I feel that's a little bit unfair.
Charlie, I'm going to need your assistance here because the request is for his business. And he states that he doesn't shoot the gun for his business. Are there restrictions for 5 acres
No,
for shooting?
no, we have no control whatever over his personal shooting.
Right.
We, let me give one just introductory kind of remark on just firearms licenses in general. The state has a statute that basically says we can't deal with a firearms license any differently as a conditional use than any other conditional use. So for example, most of our conditional use permits, we talk about hours that people come. Well, he's having no people come. We talk about parking, traffic. Well, we have no parking, no traffic. We do on occasion talk about aspects of that conditional use leaving the property, such as bursts of light, noise, and whatnot. That doesn't mean we can say anything about his personal shooting. That's absolutely legal. Obviously, if he's doing it unsafely, then he has some responsibility there. But that's just simply nothing we can regulate. I do think the board must ask. He's testified that he does it in a safe manner, and that the backdrops basically make it virtually impossible for ricochets and whatnot. I do think the board probably needs to hear more specifically from him why he concludes that, because there is indeed a reasonable basis for the board to say, just like any conditional use permit, we do not have to approve one that creates a hazard for neighbors, roadways, or whatever. We just simply can't, and I really can't stress this enough, we can't say no or be more restrictive to a firearms license than we can, somebody having a beauty shop chair in their garage. We cannot have a prejudice against that use and therefore be more difficult for them. Again, and I'll repeat myself, I hope for the final time, but if in fact there is a problem or potential, not a problem, but a potential problem of bullets and that kind of thing leaving the property that is exacerbated by the home occupation they're requesting, then we can in fact make reasonable provision for that. So if he can explain why his backdrops are safe, why nothing's leaving the property, and why they won't really see any difference in the amount of shooting, then he's exhausted our authority, because state law is really clear. We've got, and I'm probably even skirting the line by saying it requires us to wear kid gloves when we deal with firearms licenses, because they are specifically protected by the state legislature. So if he can explain why his backdrops and all are safe, then, well, and of course you believe the circumstances and concur, then that pretty well exhausts what we can do.
Okay.
would
Zach,
be-
can you explain to us your backdrops?
Yes, ma'am. So where we shoot at is probably 50 yards from our front porch. Beyond that, on our property, probably goes another, I would estimate another 100 yards past where we're even shooting at. which is thick woods, and then it goes into a creek bed, and then it starts to rise up, and then our property would probably go for another 100 or so yards up the hill before you would even get to his property.
So, but right now you're just to use the natural.
Right. It's a natural berm, but the distance, I just don't. I'm very familiar with firearms, and there's just no way that anything that we're doing would ever touch his property. And like I said before, if I believed even for a second that it would, I wouldn't even be shooting in that direction. I didn't know that he felt like that. I would love to meet him. He is. We can only see two neighbors, and he's one of them. I'm more than happy to reevaluate everything. I want him to feel safe in his home. I don't. I would love to show him or have him come over and just kind of look at what we're looking at. I'm very open to suggestions from him or however. I'm completely okay with that.
Okay.
Can I offer a comment, please?
Mhm.
I just want to say I also live on 5 acres, and if he's talking about a backward elevation like we have, we can shoot out here because by the time we get to the neighbor's house behind us, there's no way. It's like looking at a wall by the time you look at the way the elevation rises in the back. I mean, there's just nowhere else for anything to go but in the ground. So maybe if the neighbor would come and see that from that viewpoint, you can see that there's no way that it naturally has a backdrop. Does that make sense?
I'm sorry. Where we're located at, we're actually pointing downward towards the ground. That's the way the elevations goes. I mean, it is actually very steep enough that we had to build a little, I don't want to call it a berm, but it is so we can hang out on in the summertime when it gets there. It's that steep that we had to build a landing, I guess you could say, because it is all just, I mean, it's very steep.
You're shooting into the ground then.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
You know, from my perspective, we're talking about a gentleman here who has firearm training. He is trained to rebuild, build, and test these models. I think out of safety and concern, he would be the least person I'd be worried about safety. I do understand the neighbor's concern about shooting up a hill. However, anybody that buys that 5 acres can shoot on that 5 acres. The problem is Mr. Sloan has the training and so forth to do so. I would feel safer personally with him owning a business there to do that. You know, we have 20 to 25 acres. We do shoot here and we have neighbors close to us. It's a part of the country, you know, but I do understand the neighbor's concern. I would implore that the neighbor would go over and see what he's talking about and understand the process. But the training in the background speaks volumes. And like Charlie said, from the state legislature standpoint, he's bound by law to follow certain procedures. And if he doesn't, then obviously there are ramifications to that. And I'm sure he's aware of that.
Yeah. Do we have any other discussion?
Shirley and I, Hostley, would be open to a visitation from our neighbor. We have no problems with that. We like to visit our neighbors all the time. He's assured me that there will not be an extended amount of shooting through his business, which is fine. That's fine. And I understand what they're talking about. My property borders him down in the woods down there. And it kind of makes me a little fearful of going down in my own property to enjoy the wildlife that I see down there. I'm more than happy to open my door and visit with the gentleman and his wife if that need be. Anytime, just give me a call.
I appreciate that. I'll be by soon. Thank you, sir.
You betcha.
Madam Chairman, if I might suggest,
Yes.
from what we've heard and from what I gather from some of the comments of board members, I think the consensus is that we're fairly comfortable with the safety of this. Just like any conditional use permit, however, assuming these neighbors do in fact get together and Mr. Hostley learned something that, wait a minute, this is not an accurate portrayal, he can come back and ask the board to review.
Right.
I would not ever recommend we just defer something and then let neighbors, to decide. But on the other hand, if he sees something that, no, it's not like that, he certainly can then come to staff, make a complaint, ask for a review of that, and the board will, of course, review it. And if he convinces you that it isn't as safe, well, then you've got something you can go on. But I also have to concur with Darren. We've had a number of these. In fact, I'm kind of shocked how many we've had in the city. And to my knowledge, we've had no complaints on any of them. These, in fact, are incredibly responsible folks. And quite often, our fears are more about what we think we know than about what these guys actually know and what they're capable of actually performing.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other discussion or comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion for this application, S 2021.
I'll move that we approve application S 2021-01, conditional use permit for Zachary Sloan at 100 Redbud Lane, subject to staff recommendations.
Do I have a second?
This is Janet. I'll second.
Motion by Sonia, second by Janet. All those in favor to approve this application, please say aye.
Aye.
S 20-21-01 is approved. And Matt will be in touch with you, Mr. Lane.
Thank you all.
Sloan, sorry. Sloan,
No.
sorry.
You're fine. Thank you all.
Thank you. Do we have, we don't have any other applications? Then the other item on the agenda is notification policy for conditional use.
Yeah, and if it's okay with the board, I'd actually like to postpone that to a later meeting. We discussed it some at the Georgetown Board of Adjustment meeting, and I wanted to give our GIS folks time to come up with some visuals for us.
Okay.
Kim, I'd like to put it on record that Charlie actually said he agreed with me in public. So
I was so hoping you wouldn't notice that.
I don't know. That's the
It's
first
on
thing. I
YouTube, so it's recorded.
It's
Sometimes when you lean out beyond your skis, you just get in trouble.
Yeah.
Do we have any other items on the agenda?
No, ma'am.
All right. Then I will adjourn the January 7th